Give it a rest with Amber, I beg. I should probably back up some. At time of writing, the pinned comment on my recent Invincible video has 3 replies. The first one's a compliment. How nice. That pinned comment is a shameless little Patreon plug, a man's gotta eat, and so the second one is a viewer making light of that fact, you know, in a joking kind of tone. Fun. The third one's about Amber. That video isn't about Amber. I never even mention her. She's only visible in the background of the clips I show for a handful of seconds. And yet it probably goes without saying that there were plenty more Amber comments than that single one in the rest of the comment section, of course there were, and that people have previously taken to unprompted Amber bashing in the comments of entirely unrelated videos of mine. Now, whatever side you're on, if you have seen Invincible, if you have had any online discussion or engagement around the show since, this won't be a shock to you. No doubt you're aware of the fact that the Amber problem has become possibly the defining topic of Invincible conversation and debate in the 2 years since Season 1 rolled out. For those of you who haven't seen Invincible, though, you may well be a little confused. Amber's the girlfriend, right, you might say. Not the protagonist, not the antagonist, not even a main character in every episode. Why is she brought up, torn down, without fail, every time someone so much as mentions the show? Well, to those of you who don't mind that first season being spoiled, let me catch you up. Popular girl Amber takes notice of the less popular Mark after he stands up for her in a kind of non-violent way. Soon enough, they start seeing each other, romantic styles, but that's made tricky by the fact that Mark is... Sorry, I don't know why that keeps happening. But the fact that Mark's just developed superpowers and is also starting up a crime-fighting, villain-smashing career under the nom de guerre Invincible. Over the course of the series, Mark attempts to juggle superheroing and seeing Amber, and does so poorly, more or less managing to cope on the costumed side of things, but habitually breaking dates, turning up hours late, not paying attention, all that. This all comes to a head in episodes 6 and 7. A villain attacks, Mark disappears without warning, and after Invincible kind of averts the danger, Amber blows up at him, and call it friends because now they're on a break. Again, this kind of thing has happened a lot, and for less immediate reasons. Mark breaking dates and disappearing suddenly to help out Cecil or whoever else, as opposed to protecting friends from imminent danger. And Mark had already come back from a previous last chance already, but as it turns out, this is the last straw, because now, Amber knows. She hadn't known the whole time, they'd been together months, she pieced it together a week or 2 ago, and when she'd got upset at him for running off this time, she was actually upset that even after their new start, he still wasn't trusting her. So when Mark shows up to reveal his secret, thinking it'd make everything better, she pretty much tells him, yeah, I know you're invincible, so what?
You know?
I'm not an idiot. I figured it out weeks ago.
Then why are we fighting?
We're fighting because you lied to me. You made me feel stupid and unimportant.
Amber isn't upset with Mark because he snuck off, or because he missed some dates. She's upset that he'd been lying about the reason for months, and she's upset about the chronic lack of trust that shows. Telling her now, of course, means nothing. Mark's only prompted to do this by Amber's breaking up with him. If she hadn't done this, he'd still be keeping her in the dark, and the fact that Mark's willing to break the secret now, use the secret identity card to try and fix a relationship, kind of puts to bed the notion that he couldn't have told her before, right? Anyway, that's the fight, and it probably bears mentioning that by the end of the series, they've reconciled. That's the 411 though. And if you're hearing that and thinking, cool, a subplot about the mess and harm juggling the secret identity can cause to superhero and love interest alike. If you're thinking, yeah, I guess she could have been more empathetic about it, but to empathize with Mark's difficulties, he'd have to have told her about them, and wasn't that kind of the problem? If you're thinking, I guess she could have been less dramatic about it, they could have communicated better, but again, they're teenagers on a show full of teens in whom a nascent maturity coexists with immaturity in a pretty realistic way, and that even in reality, without alien dads and supervillains to contend with, teenagers in relationships very often fall prey to these same problems, failure to communicate, being driven by hurt, fear of honesty, all that. If you're thinking, sure, Mark's sacrifices were necessary, but stringing Amber along, forcing her into the doting superhero partner trope without her even knowing, that wasn't.
It's hard making it all fit.
Sure, that's fine. Then make that choice. But then this? I'm not doing this anymore.
That this isn't the show forcing strong female character at us, telling us the male hero is bad and wrong, something something subversion, something something SJW, something something Western civilization, but was in fact a layered and nuanced confrontation between two people who are both a bit right and both a bit wrong, that maybe Invincible's wider development and reevaluation of simple right versus wrong hero-villain dynamics extends beyond the costumed section of its world, that it might be able to present a personal life conflict that isn't simply goody versus baddie, someone correct versus someone wrong, and that it's uncomfortable to watch because you, the viewer, realize, as Mark does, that maybe his perspective, the one the show's so far focused on, privileged, implicitly justified, isn't quite as right as you'd thought, or as the genre tropes it's based on often tend to assume. If all or any of that is what you're thinking, then yeah, right? Congratulations on the functioning brain. Us brain havers, though, turns out we're something of a minority. Is that a bombshell? It was for me. I came to Invincible pretty late. I just watched it this year. After I watched Invincible, more people asked me what I thought about the Amber situation than they did what I thought of the ending, the Omni-Man Mark showdown, or about the performances, or the animation, and so on. Isn't that weird? The first time after that Invincible came up on the Pillar of Garbage Discord, well, I'll let you guess the topic. This was my take back then. I picked up that there was vaguely an issue around Amber, but I didn't really know the specifics or extent of it. I do now, though. Remember the intro, the pinned comment, the replies? Well, I wrote that on Tuesday night. It's now Wednesday, and we're up to 7. These are the rest. Coincidentally, overnight we got some more Amber talk in the Discord, some pictures of Instagram comments from the newest Season 2 promo. Watch the whole season be about Amber shitting on Mark again. I don't feel like having to tolerate Amber again. Amber deserves the train treatment. You only have to scroll down once to see the same on YouTube. Why is this the case? Why are people still so angry at Amber, still convinced her character is irrational, a stain on the show, all this years after those episodes came out? Well, for one, it's among Season 1's more major departures from the comics, which automatically puts a certain segment of any comic book property's viewership on defense mode. There's also the usual elephant in the room, and I don't want to get properly into this here because we'd be here all day, but it would be remiss of me when talking about the curious longevity and dominance of this beat, the way it sometimes seems to eclipse the rest of the show, not to at least point out briefly that suppositions of anti-male agendas, anti-SJW rage and all that, was baked into the beat and farmed for countless views across this platform, still is to this day in fact. But maybe the main reason is that Invincible is too good. What I mean by this is that there's sort of two layers to Invincible. There's the level on which genre tropes are played straight, power fantasy, super teams, the double life, the love interest, but there's also a level, or levels, beneath this, where those tropes and the assumptions that underpin them are questioned, sometimes even deconstructed and reassembled. We talked a little about this side of Invincible in that previous video, only scratching its surface, mind, but while that sub-level substance is juicy as heck, so is the surface. The animation, the voice acting, the direction, the audio design, score, soundtrack, the world, the fights are all really good. So good that however much Invincible might invite you below the surface, you can have a pretty good time just watching it straight. And when you do that, Amber's hurt, her violated boundaries, her subjectivity, these are hard to pass. The standard line in the genre is that the superhero's personal connections have to take a back seat to their duty, that it's a shame if you have to stand your girlfriend up again, keep her in the dark again, but that's the price you pay, that's the sacrifice you make, and eventually when they find out, they see that too, they accept as necessary the doting love interest role they've been shoved into. The hero is the subject, theirs is the emotional struggle we see, and the one that matters. Invincible even gives us this early on.
You left a girl in your room while you flew off to deal with a crisis. Good. I mean, not good for her, but good. That's the tricky part of the job. Balancing what you want to do with what you need to do.
This is in episode 3, and to the uninitiated, it's an utterly standard line. It's a line you could hear Peter giving to Miles. It's a line any Big 2 mentor could give to their super protege. It's superhero fiction by the books. But if you do know who Nolan is, things get a lot more interesting. Nolan's arguing for duty above desire, but realizing Nolan's lesson that what the hero has to do is more important than what they want to do is an extension of his Viltrumite infiltration logic.
Remember, you're not just a superhero, Mark. You're a Viltrumite. We have responsibilities.
Is him arguing in code that defeating Earth is more important than his family? It becomes clear that this isn't necessarily trustworthy advice, that maybe Mark shouldn't have dropped everything with Amber to help Cecil clean up a mess, shouldn't go on to do that again and again, that maybe both personal connections and helping the cause are important. This exchange is interesting as setup, as an early indication that following his dad's advice, building a relationship under this rigid mindset might not be the best approach, but it is of course also one of the textual manholes Invincible offers to the viewer as an entry point into those deeper levels. One of the signs that this is a show that wants you to go with it in re-evaluating the tropes the genre takes for granted. When you do this, when you go with it, when you start to extricate the story from the predetermined roles and assumptions a century of superhero stories has stacked up, when you stop taking for granted that the protagonist is always in the right, that his is the most important interiority, that the building of a months-long, seemingly serious relationship around a series of constant lies isn't going to result in valid hurt, and that hormonal teenagers are going to be able to operate and communicate with perfect rationality, empathy, and emotional generosity, you'll be able to watch episode 7, watch the Amber confrontation as the show wants you to see it. And you'll also be able to watch the next episode, their reconciliation, characteristically messy as it is, and appreciate the way that even real, valid pain can be worked through and overcome. So again, give it a rest with Amber, I beg. Stop commenting on trailers, on forum posts, and on entirely non-Amber focused Invincible content that, yeah, the show's good except for Amber, she's wrong, I hate Amber. And to be clear, I am not saying that even after all this, you have to like this romance, this character even. I'm of course not saying either that in responding to Season 2, we don't talk about their relationship, or even about how those pivotal moments from Season 1 are developed or recontextualized. That would be stupid. I'm not even trying to tell you not to criticize Amber. Everyone responds to art differently. That subjectivity is what turns this from a thing we're all looking at together into something meaningful. And that includes criticism, but it's a question of proportion, isn't it? And online Invincible discussion these past few years has been characterized, perhaps above all else, by an utterly disproportionate response. What I am saying, then, is that even when I do end up talking Invincible Season 2 on this channel, I'd really like to look down at the comment section and not see any unrelated, "this show is sick apart from Amber, who I hate" responses. Any dogged reply guys determined to brute force others into admitting there's some horrid objective flaw here tainting Invincible. And I am saying that if I do, I'm not going to be giving any replies. See, I could do the whole hedging thing, give it the classic, "I think your criticism is flawed, but yeah, I guess they could have handled it better." But I'm not going to. First, because that's just a meaningless thing to say, it contains no information, and you could say it about literally anything. Sure, I liked The Catcher in the Rye, but yeah, Salinger could have handled Holden a little better. And second, because to do this is to play defense, is to cede the most important point, that there is an Amber problem to begin with that needs discussing. And yeah, I remain thoroughly unconvinced there. The moment people usually cite as proof is this moment from episode 6.
Where the hell did you go?
I ran for help, but there wasn't anyone.
Lying piece of
Wait,
shit.
no! This isn't what it looks like.
You took off. You left us here with that thing.
Amber, no, that's not what happened.
You said you wanted to start over. You said that. You promised. Even Eve vouched for you, and then you do this? Eve was wrong about you. So was I.
The following episode indicates Amber knew Mark's secret at this point, and the usual claim is that this episode 6 scene doesn't make sense in this new context. But if you are a brain haver, you might be confused, because yeah, it works fine, doesn't it? Knowing the truth hurt that even in this situation, even after their fresh start, Mark is still hiding things. Amber is simply seeing how far she can push these lies, how hard she can needle away at them before he comes clean. But he still doesn't, and that's why she leaves here. I'll leave a more detailed breakdown of the way this exchange is perfectly functional in the pinned comment for anyone still unconvinced, but this is pretty representative of the wider Amber problems people often grant, in that there's things we can read differently, things we can quibble over until the end of time, but nothing that flat out doesn't work, and that you can imagine an alternate version that you like better does not a problem make. If you're a vocal Amber hater, I suppose nothing is stopping you from taking all this as a challenge, from launching into renewed, frenzied litigation over whether or not woman bad in this comment section, in the comments of the next Invincible video you watch, and the next one. But isn't that just a little sad? Isn't it a shame that you've watched this fantastic show and your primary concern, the part you're most invested into, the part you're arguing with strangers online over, is female side character bad? Isn't it a pity that there will be plenty of people, some of them content creators, who are going into season 2 with their main concern being how it does or doesn't respond to one scene from the start of episode 7 and the online furor that's followed it for years? I think so, but it's gonna happen anyway. So, in a sense, what's at stake in every both sides admission that you're going too far, but I guess Amber could have been done better, isn't simply whether or not Amber bad, it's also what we're talking about, what gets focused on, what gets ignored, and how Invincible gets experienced for new viewers. It's the same principle as the Brie Larson Captain Marvel hate train. If the starting point, even for those who enjoy that character, is this big alleged problem, if you're playing defense right from the start, just think about how much more interesting content, discussion, opinion is lost invisibly. And frankly, Invincible deserves better than to be the show where woman bad and also maybe some superhero stuff happens, I guess. So, if after all this, you still think it's nuanced, realistic, praiseworthy when the government's heroes, villains, other powers don't properly communicate, aren't infallible, when right and wrong give way to grey, but that Amber opposing on equal terms our demonstrably non-perfect protagonist, being hurt by his secrets and apparent lack of trust is unacceptable for some reason, that no, she owed her then ex-boyfriend moral absolution and total forgiveness because in an attempt to win her back, he stopped lying to her, then jog on, I guess, and maybe also Google misogynoir. But to anyone with a more open mind, I plead one final time. Can we give it a rest with the random, constant Amber hate? Please? For me? Jesus, I wanted this to be like a 6-minute video. That's it, we're done. I'm gonna go get started watching season 2. But not before I thank all my Patreon and YouTube supporters on screen now, especially Daniel Goldhorn, Karen Kuhlman, Magath, Ryan Emily, Something Capitalism Bad, Thomas R, and Weirdy Beardy. Oh, feel free to like and share too, and to leave your own thoughts down below. Unless it's another goddamn Amber hate comment, then maybe go outside. Bye.